Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. If there's a few latecomers, that's no big deal. So I said this already, but if you missed it, please just keep your mics muted, just so we don't have too much feedback from all the people on the call. And if you have any questions, send them in the Zoom Messenger. We have my friend Tracy is going to help monitor the questions, so hopefully that works out for you guys. Um, all right, let's get started. My name is Madeline Klein. If you don't know me already, I am one of the programs coordinators for 4-H Alberta. And this is our first time running this science food experiment activity. So what it's going to look like is we'll go through a few of the science backgrounds for some of the recipes we're going to do. And then we're going to make the ice cream recipe together. But the rest of the recipes I'll let you go and do on your own time so you don't have to sit on a Zoom call. So if you noticed, I sent an email with all the recipes just this afternoon attached to it. So that's an easy way to find the recipes. And if you can't find the email, it's also all the recipes are on the Google Classroom, which I'm going to go over in this and how to access it in case you couldn't figure it out. So don't worry about it. And also, if you have to leave early, it's not a big deal. We're recording this and we'll post it and you'll be able to watch it and do the recipes on your own time. So we're going to start off with the 4-H pledge. So if everyone wants to stand up and we'll get the pledge going.
I'll do the pledge. All right.
Okay, I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you. If you're having technical difficulties too, please message in the chat, and Tracy, our other program coordinator, will help you out.
So we can do these later. I can help you with these at another time, but we can listen. We're smart. We want to become smarter.
Okay.
Oh, you're moving up in the world. This is like a 4, 5, 6 class. You get a PowerPoint to listen to.
Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So welcome to the Science of Food. This is our science and technology portion of the night. Or of our new series, our new opportunities for members. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but we're going to be offering a couple of these virtual hands-on activities for you. And they're all going to fit into our leadership development pillars, which I will talk about in a second. I just want to start off with our sponsor recognition. So 4-H Alberta programs like this one wouldn't be made possible without the generous support of our partners and supporters. Without their help, we would not be able to provide amazing, fun, and engaging youth programs that we do. Please make sure you thank them if you see them in your community. Okay, so when you signed up for, or if your parents signed up for the new opportunities for members on our registration system, what we're trying to do with this is just offer you some programs that you can do at home, some fun hands-on activities, and we're trying to fit them into our 4-H leadership development pillars. So this is something that is run all across 4-H Canada, these pillars. And what these are is they represent the sections of 4-H. So everything you do in 4-H, your projects, your public speaking, anything you do in your community, all of this fits into our leadership development pillars. So we're going to go through all 4 of them, but the first one we're going to work on today is science and technology. So if you access the Google Classroom, that is our science and technology classroom. So it won't only be used for this activity. Moving forward, we're going to put some other cool activities, some coding activities, some online activities, as well as some hands-on activities that you can do. And hopefully we can get more content in there for you guys to get some hands-on things and have some fun stuff to do in your spare time and learn more about 4-H. Okay, so our overview of today is we're going to talk about the science of ice cream making, making butter, making mayonnaise, and making bread. And then at the very end, I'm going to run through making ice cream with you. So if you want to stay and make the ice cream with me, you can. If you'd like to go and try one of the other recipes, you totally can. The only thing is that if you take a video or a photo of yourself after you've made your recipe or of your creation and upload it to the Google Classroom, then we will enter you in a draw to win a great 4-H prize. So make sure that you keep track and take photos of the things that you create and upload them, because you get a prize for each one of the 4 that you upload, or you get entered into the draw. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is ice cream in a bag. So this is a really easy way to make ice cream at home, and it's really delicious. I made it earlier, so I can attest to that. We're going to just be making vanilla ice cream, but you can add any toppings that you want onto it after. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the science of ice cream. So if you've had a chance to read the ingredients and the recipe, maybe you've already seen this, but when we make the ice cream, what we do is we have a big bag of ice and we put a bunch of salt in the ice to mix the salt and the ice together. And what salt does is it does something called freezing point depression. And it means that it's going to melt the ice in the bag, but the ice is going to still stay really cold. So the water that comes off of the ice normally is going to be warmer if it melts in a normal temperature when ice normally melts. But what the salt is going to do is it's going to lower the temperature that the water freezes at. So the water will still get really, really cold, but it's not going to freeze into hard ice. And the good thing about that is that then the really cold water can wrap around our ice cream bag and make it really cold everywhere instead of just in a few spots where the ice is. An important thing to know about salt and ice is, maybe you've probably noticed this in the wintertime because we live in Alberta, that the icy roads get salted all the time. And the reason for this is because salt will melt the ice even if it's really cold. So you'll still get watery roads and it'll melt the ice away so they're not so slippery, even if the temperature is freezing cold. So this is an example of when you would use this in real life as well, other than just with ice cream. Also, melting ice is endothermic, which means that it takes heat from around it and sucks it in to make the reaction happen. So you'll notice when we make the ice cream, I'm going to recommend that you put a towel around the bag or you use oven mitts, because the bag is going to get really cold, way colder than it would if it was just a normal bag of ice. And it can actually burn your fingers. It can give you an ice burn. So it's really important that you protect your hands when you're mixing this bag so that they don't get too cold. Because we don't want them to suck all the heat out of our hands. We're inside today, so let's try to avoid the winter weather if we can while we're inside. So that's basically the science of making ice cream, and we'll talk more about that when we do it hands-on at the end of the session. Okay, I'm going to take a break. Does anyone have any questions for me, for us about the ice cream? You can type them in the chat if you want, and I'll answer them. Give you guys a few minutes and then we can move on. It's okay if your cameras or anything aren't working. It's not a big deal as long as you can hear me. And also, sorry, when I share my screen, I can only see a few of you. So hopefully you can hear me and see me. Okay, it looks like we're good. And if you have any more questions that you think about while you're making your ice cream, you can always ask me later. You can send an email or you can message in the Google Classroom. Okay, so let's move on to our next recipe that we can make. Homemade butter. So I feel like a lot of you have maybe made butter before. I know I've made it when I was young and in school, but it's something that is really easy to make and it's really good, and you can be really artistic with it and add a bunch of different flavors in if you want to. So you could make like a herb butter or a honey butter or a maple butter. So it's a really fun thing to do and not a lot of people think to do it. So we'll talk a little bit about the science of butter. Okay, so heavy cream, which is what we use to make the butter, is an emulsion. We're going to talk more about emulsions when we talk about our next recipe. But basically what an emulsion is when there's two liquids that are mixed together that normally don't like to mix together. So an example of liquids that don't like to mix together is water and oil. So if you want to do a bonus experiment, if you haven't done this already in school, you can fill a cup with some water and then you can pour some cooking oil into it, and you'll notice that they separate and they don't mix together. So an emulsion would be when those two liquids that stay separated are actually forced to mix together. So when we're making butter, we're actually reversing an emulsion. So heavy cream is an emulsion that is made inside the cow. And then when we are making butter, we're separating the milk mixture. So we're removing the milk fat, which is our butter, and we're leaving buttermilk, which you can actually use for baking. So it's kind of hard to make butter on your arms, at least, because you have to shake for a long time. So I recommend having a partner to help you shake when you're shaking the heavy cream to make it turn into butter. But what shaking does is it helps the fat particles find each other really quickly and stick together, and so that they can separate fast away from the liquid buttermilk. So what you'll end up with is all these fat globs stuck together to make one hard mass. And then you're going to have this watery liquid buttermilk that you can use for other things. And you'll notice that the fat seems to come out of nowhere, but it's just because now it's finding each other and it's able to clump together. So let's talk a little bit more about emulsions with our mayonnaise, which is our next one. And then I'll open it up for some questions if you guys have any. So homemade mayo is also something we're going to make. And creating mayonnaise is actually creating an emulsion. So it's kind of the opposite of butter. So you're taking two liquids that don't normally mix. And in our case, we're taking the oil and the vinegar, but here's the example here, oil and water. And when you're making an emulsion, you need something called an emulsifying agent. So what that is it's a particle that will force the two liquids that don't like each other to mix. And so one side of the emulsifying agent will attach to one particle of the liquid, and the other side will attach to the other particle of the liquid, and it helps them surround each other so it looks like it's one uniform mixture. And you'll learn about this a ton in school, but emulsions are really important and they're used in a lot of different things. So any sort of medicated lotion or cream that you might get from your doctor, or even just normal lotions and creams that you get from the store, some hair products, those are all examples of emulsions. And they're really, really important and they're hard to make. But mayo is actually a pretty easy one to make and very delicious. So our emulsifying agent in the mayonnaise that we're going to be making is the egg yolk. So when you add your egg in there, it's going to help the oil and the vinegar of our mayo stick together when normally that they wouldn't at all. It's really important though that you add the ingredients really slow and you mix really fast. You have to do a lot of mixing. All these are going to be some arm workouts. So hopefully you guys have been doing your push-ups. I hope. I haven't been doing my push-ups, so this might be hard on me, but I'm going to try my best. So you have to make sure you're mixing really fast and you're adding the ingredients really slowly. So I'm going to take a break. I know I'm going fast, but I want to get to making the ice cream, and then I want to leave you guys the opportunity to go and make the rest of the ingredients or the rest of the recipes. So if you have any questions for me, message them in the chat right now, and then we'll go to our final recipe. Oops.
Or if you want to unmute and you just have a question for Maddie, that's all right too, if you don't want to type it.
Yep, that's fine. I have to find my chat. Oh, there we go. I'm glad everyone can hear. No questions? It's okay. Like I said, if you have more questions, you can message them in the Google Classroom, or you can send me an email, or you can ask me near the end of the session. Okay, so our final recipe that we sent is, I called it science bread. Really, it's just bread, but I thought science bread was more cool. So we're going to make the simplest form of bread. It's really easy. Anyone can do it. You just need the ingredients. So I want to talk a little bit about the science of bread because it's interesting and it's a little bit different than the other types of reactions we were talking about. Okay, so we need our flour for our bread. That's the main base. And flour is really important because it has what's called a gluten in it. And gluten protein, maybe you've heard of, some people are allergic to gluten. That's probably where you've heard it commonly used. And a lot of things will say gluten-free. But in this recipe, we're just using plain white flour, which has gluten protein. And the important thing that gluten does is when it gets wet, it gets really sticky and it forms a network that helps all of your dough stick together. But it only happens when it gets wet. So that's why we also need water when we're making bread. So the first step of making bread is obviously to combine your flour and your water. But the only problem with that is then you're going to end up with a really flat dough. So we need something in the dough that's going to help it get nice and fluffy and make a nice loaf of bread. And this is why we need yeast. So yeast comes in a little packet, and or the yeast that you probably purchased or you've seen in your house will come in a little packet, and it won't be activated. But once you mix it in to your recipe, it's going to get instantly activated with the water and the flour, and it's going to start working. So yeast is a fungus, actually, and it eats sugar. It loves sugar. So it kind of seems a little confusing because flour doesn't taste sweet. So some people think that flour doesn't have any sugar in it, but what it does have is starch. And starch is a complex sugar. So when you start mixing up your dough, the enzymes in the flour are going to break down the starch to produce some sugar. And it'll taste a little sweet. And then the yeast that you've mixed in is going to eat that sugar up. And when it eats the sugar up, it produces a gas called carbon dioxide gas. And this gas is going to help inflate your dough, kind of like a balloon, except for not the same because it's all mixed together. So it'll help it rise slowly with the gas that it's producing. Sometimes you'll get little air pockets in your dough, and that's just a collection of the gas. And it's usually good to roll those out or knead them out so that you don't have a big hole in your bread when you bake it. But that's an example of the gas collecting inside the dough. So it's kind of cool because yeast is alive because it's metabolizing or eating up the sugar. So it's not just a chemical that's reacting with another chemical. It's actually eating the sugar in your dough and producing carbon dioxide. And making dough is really cool. You have to have some patience because you have to let it rise, but you can actually see it rising really quick and it'll get springy. And you can test to see if your dough is done rising by poking it with your finger, which is kind of fun. I'll admit, poking squishy dough. Don't poke it too much because you'll deflate it. But if you want to test every once in a while to see how your dough is doing, you can poke it. And if it springs back up right away, it's not done rising. but if you poke it a bit and it stays poked and dented in, then your dough is probably done rising and the yeast has eaten up basically as much sugar as it can out of the flour. So it'll be really cool when you make this. Like I said, you're going to have some patience, but if you never watched bread rise, this is a very cool opportunity to do that. And think about the yeast being able to eat your sugar. So does anyone have any questions about bread? There's lots of different types of bread and way more complex ones, but the recipe I gave you guys is really simple, so you don't have to worry about it.
They're asking Maddie why there is oil in the recipe.
Oh, in
So
which recipe?
Was there oil in the I'm not sure which one. They just asked.
Oil. Yeah, it's food oil. So when it says oil in the mayonnaise, if that's what you're asking about, it's cooking oil. It's not car oil. So it's you can use canola oil. You could use avocado oil if you want. You could use any sort of cooking oil that is safe to eat. And if you're not sure, ask your parent or a guardian or a family member to get some oil for you that's safe to eat. That's a good question, though. Yeah, it actually, just eating oil on its own, I would agree, is not very good, but it does help with baking a lot. It's like a lot of things. You wouldn't want to eat a lot of things you use in baking, like flour. You wouldn't want a big scoop of flour. Oh, in the bread, why is there oil? There shouldn't be oil. Unless I gave you if I gave you the wrong recipe, I'm sorry about that. But there shouldn't be. But I think the correct one's on the website. And if not, I will change it.
The correct ones on the
Google Class.
In their classroom.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think that's good. Do you guys have any more questions before I just talk about the Google Classroom and then we can start making ice cream? Like Tracy said, if you want to unmute yourself now, you can to ask a question. I like the conversation about oil. Okay. So the recipes that you got that should have been attached to the email, but will also be in the Google Classroom, are going to look like this. And so here it has the ingredients and the materials. Here it has your directions. And then it'll also have the science. So it goes into a little more in depth about the science than what I explained. But if you have any more questions about the science of it, or you want more of an explanation, you can always ask me. I'm happy to explain. And if I don't know the answer, I will look it up for you. I'm also going to put a few more extra resources to learn about some other applications of the science that we learned about with these foods. So I just want to show you quick how to access the Google Classroom in case you haven't been able to get onto it yet. And then we can get started making our ice cream. Okay, so let me escape this. Okay. All right, so sorry, my screen is in the way here. All right, so to get onto Google Classroom, you can go to classroom.google.com on your web browser. And then you just need to make sure that you're signed in with a Google account. So if you guys got to participate in the Dashing Through December, you might have already tried this and know how to access it, which is great. If not, that's fine. I also, in the email I sent out, it should have a link to a YouTube video that has a little explanation about how to add a Google Classroom. For some of you who are having issues with too many notifications, I would recommend clicking on this main menu bar up here. and going down to your settings, and there you can change how many email notifications you get. So if you're getting too many, that's how you can change it. So here's our Google Classroom. You'll go to classroom.google.com and it'll bring you to the main page. And then you can click on a little plus button and it'll say join class. And then to join the class, you just need this code right here, which I can display. So if you haven't joined, write down this code and you can type it in. I'm also going to have it up on the slide after while we make the ice cream, so you can always go back and look at it. So here's the code. This classroom is going to be good to be a part of because like I said, we're going to be adding a lot of activities, which will be fun to do, and some more on the computer and some hands-on. So that'll be fun. And if you need more help or have any more questions, you can message in the chat and Tracy can help you out. So if you want to access the recipes and you can't find them in your email, you can go to this classwork tab right here. And here we have all of the different recipes. We also have some video tutorials off of YouTube to help you with the recipes. So if you want more of a visual explanation on how to do the ones that we don't do in this call, you definitely can. So those are all those. And then we also have the assignments. So if you complete a recipe and you take a picture or a video of it, you can upload it right here to the creation. So this one's for ice cream in a bag creation. And if you added any toppings or anything, you can show that off in the video or the photo. And so each one of these sections has a creations, and you can click on it and you'll be able to upload an assignment, and then we will give you an entry into the draw for each assignment that you upload. So for each recipe you do, you'll get one entry into the draw. The deadline is Monday the 25th. So make sure that if you don't get a chance to cook them this week, try and get them cooked over the weekend, and then you can get entered into the draw. If you want a bonus entry, our feedback form is going to open up at 6 o'clock. So you can go do a feedback form for this course. Let us know what you thought about it, what you want to change for the other member opportunities coming up, or any other feedback that you have. So if you can submit this, then you'll also get an extra bonus entry. Does anyone have any questions about Google Classroom? Oh, the other thing is that some schools won't let you use your school email to access a Google Classroom that isn't part of the school division. So if you're trying to use your school email and it's not letting you get onto the classroom, that might be why. So you'd have to get your parents, or you'd have to make an outside account. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation and get started. So if you have any questions, you can ask them now. Tracy's going to stay on, and if not, you can stay on to make ice cream with us. If you want to go try a different recipe, you're welcome to leave. This, like I said, this will all be recorded, so you can go watch it again later. But let's get started making ice cream. And I've already made some this morning, so I can show you the final product, so you don't have to watch me shake the ice cream for 7 minutes. So I'll give you guys some time if you want to do it alongside me to get set up, and then we will get started. I'm just going to get a few of my ingredients ready. Let me get my chat up too. And does anyone is everyone okay if I'm going to end my screen sharing, but if you still need the code or you have more questions, message in the chat and Tracy can give it to you.
I did put the class code in the chat, Maddie. So
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
the classroom code.
My chat keeps disappearing. Thank you, Tracy.
Do we need cream for the ice cream? Somebody has just asked.
Yes, you're gonna either need, I have both things you can use. You can either use whipping cream or you can use half and half. If you want, regular milk won't work, but but if you have cream, you can do it. Okay. All right, let's get going. And if you have any questions, like I said, message them in the chat or we'll take a couple breaks and you can ask them. So what I would recommend doing is starting off by getting your big bag of ice filled. So on here, it says 4 cups of ice, but as long as you have enough ice to cover around your ice cream bag, you'll be good. So you're gonna get your bag filled with ice, a big Ziploc or sealable bag of any kind. And then what we're gonna do is get the salt, put the salt into it right away so that the salt can start interacting with the ice and starting to melt it and make it more watery so that it'll wrap around our ice cream better. So it is recommended to use like a coarse salt here. I don't know if you guys can tell on my camera, but I have like some coarse salts here, but you can also just use table salt. It just might take a little bit longer to make the ice cream, but it won't be a big deal. So you're gonna take half a cup of coarse salt and dump it into your ice bag. So I'm gonna fill mine up here. And I'm just gonna dump this into the bag like that. And I'm gonna mix it around a little, mix it around so that the salt and the ice combine. And then I'll set that off to the side. I'll just give you guys a moment. If you want to get ready for the next step for the cream, this is the best way I found to do it. Is I took my smaller Ziploc bag and I put it in a glass bowl like this so that when I pour the cream in, the bag doesn't flop to the side and spill it everywhere. So you can get it set up like that. And I'll give you guys a moment to get going and then we'll make the cream, our ice cream mix. Some other things you can get ready while we wait is you can get some vanilla extract ready. You can get your sugar. I have a massive container of sugar, a little unreasonable probably, but you can get your sugar out so that you can measure it, and you can get your cream out of the fridge now. Okay, so I'm gonna get started with the next part. So I started off with the cream when I made it. And like I said, you can either use whipping cream or you can use half and half. I didn't notice much of a difference when I've made them with both. Maybe the whipping cream's a little thicker, but that's about it. So we're gonna do half a cup of cream. So I'm just gonna pour it into my half. Try not to spill. I'm notorious. I don't know about you guys, but I always make a huge mess when I cook. Okay, so here I have my cream in my bag. So this is in the smaller bag, not the bag with ice in it. You want to make sure these stay separate, otherwise your ice cream is going to be mixed with ice and it's going to taste really salty. So make sure that you're pouring the cream into a smaller bag that can be sealed up nice and tight. All right, then I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of my vanilla extract. And this is just to make your ice cream have vanilla flavoring. Really, you could add any type of flavoring here if you want to. You just don't want to add too much because it'll be really powerful. But any sort of ice cream flavor you want to make, this is the time to add the flavoring in. I have raspberry syrup that I sometimes add. It makes it taste really good. So this is just a little bit of flavoring that I'm going to dump in there. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to add is a tablespoon of white sugar. We'll add that just into our ice cream mixture. All right, so now I have all my ice cream mixture in here, and I'm going to seal it up nice and tight. What I recommend doing is squeezing your bag a little bit to get some of the air out and then sealing it up. Make sure that the seal is stuck all the way across so that it doesn't spill out into your bag of ice. Okay, and then I'm just going to switch this around just to get the sugar and the cream mixed up in there a little bit before I add it into my salt and ice mixture. All right, now is a good time to also get your I have a towel, but you can also use oven mitts or anything. I tried being tough and doing it without a towel, and I would really recommend grabbing a towel because it really hurts. So make sure that you have something to protect your hands. Even if you have winter gloves or something, that's a good call. Learn from my mistake. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure my salt, and you might notice now that you're gonna get some kind of watery salt mixture at the bottom. And it's really cool to see. And if you touch it for a while, you'll notice it's pretty cold. And as we mix it, it's gonna get even colder because the reaction's gonna happen a lot faster. So now, just making sure this is sealed, I'm gonna put my cream mixture sealed up tight inside my bag of ice and salt, like that. And I want to make, oh, it's cold. I want to make sure that the ice is all the way around the small bag. So what I'm going to do is press out the air in the big bag, seal the big bag up nice and tight so you can see the smaller bag is in the big bag now. And then I'm just going to make sure that the ice is surrounding the smaller bag a little before I really start shaking it. All right, like that. I don't know if you can see. Sorry, I don't have like a really quality camera, but there you go. Okay, and then I'm going to just wrap it up in the towel. And what I'm going to do now is I'll demonstrate how you shake it, and then I'm going to show you my finished product that I made earlier. But you guys will have to shake it for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, take a look. If you want it a little harder, you can shake it more to make it even harder. But all you're going to do is just shake it back and forth like this, and then front and back like that. Make sure it's all mixed in, and you can check it every once in a while and feel your ice cream bag inside to see how hard the ice cream is. But I would recommend setting a timer and just shaking for 5 minutes straight. And I'll show you, while you guys are shaking, I'll entertain you by showing you the ice cream I made earlier, what it looks like. So when I put my ice cream in the freezer, I didn't make it super hard, so it kind of froze a little bit, but let me get a spoon. You can eat your ice cream straight out of the bag if you want, or yeah, mine's really frozen because I had it in the freezer when I ate it. But here's my ice cream. I ate it a bunch already because it was really good. But It's all frozen and crystallized because I put it back in the freezer, but this is what it's gonna look like. Nice and vanilla and solid. So after your 5 minutes, you'll just take your bag out of the big bag and you'll have your ice cream.